came from. The methodology came from startup number 7, a company called Rocket Science Games, where in the shortest amount of time in Silicon Valley history, Rocket Science Games raised $38 million in venture capital from the biggest names in Silicon Valley and blew it all. They were on the cover of Wired magazine as the future of digital gaming. Steve and I happen to have the same haircut. Can you imagine how great this haircut would look on the cover of Wired magazine in neon yellow and green and orange and pink? Well, Steve was on that cover. The future of, digital gaming is here, and it's Steve's new company. And from the date of that cover to the time when they shut the business down, another Silicon Valley record. Pretty weird, huh? Go from like the worst record to the best record in a matter of a couple of years? What taught Steve about customer development in that total disaster failure? It was really pretty simple. They had world-class talent, top engineers, top designers, top game engineers, developers, top salespeople, finance people, marketing people. They looked like guaranteed winner. And they shipped. This was in the days when you rode your dinosaur to the video game store and you bought a cartridge and you brought that cartridge home on your dinosaur and you plugged it into, a console of some sort. They shipped tens of thousands of cartridges to game stores all over the world. And within a few weeks, they started getting calls. Everybody is returning these to us. They say that the games, in a word, suck, stink. They wanted their money back. The stores said, get this stuff out of here or we are going to charge you to carry the stuff to the dump and have them put it in landfill because nobody wants it. And by the way, we're not paying your bills. Boom, company gone. So what went wrong? One little thing. None of the management team, none of the developers played video games for fun. They only played them. Sir, if you have to make a phone call, please go outside. If no problem. If you have email to do, there's a coffee shop right outside. If you're here, I hope you're here to listen. But there's no requirement. We're not taking attendance. Anyway, no customer ever played the games. No gamers. So the games were perfect statistically and engineering-wise and analytically, but the customer never got a chance to vote until they voted with their feet, running away from Rocket Science Games. And that, more than any single life experience, Rocket Science was Steve's 7th startup. Epiphany, the $8 billion one, was his 8th. That 7th experience was what taught him to turn the way we think about startups totally upside down and to recognize that the only thing that matters is building a great product that customers are desperately eager to have, that they grab out of your hands, that they tell their friends about, not to get a discount or a coupon. They tell their friends about it because I just found this great product. You'll love it too. So who's this guy, right? Who's this guy, Bob, right? 11 times in Russia. What the heck am I doing here, right? The age of 22, started my first company. That was a long time ago. 30 years later, I finished number 7. Then I invested in 27 more. We'll talk about that briefly. And I've been working with Steve for 5 years. First, writing the book with him, which was an intense, painful experience. And then I've spent 10 years earlier with Steve's company as a client of my 7th startup, helping him with his Get Customers activity, which is one of the many things we'll talk about this afternoon. And I would be negligent if I didn't tell you about my other startup, my greatest startup of all, my wonderful daughter, a little closer to your age than to mine, who in addition to earning her PhD in psychology, has made me a grandpa with two wonderful grandchildren. But the most important thing I did of all, as far as you're concerned, is not my wonderful grandchildren. It's the 500 stupid startup mistakes that either I made or Steve Blank made or we both made together, or simultaneously. And that's where you learn how to build a great startup. You don't learn about it in a classroom. You don't learn about it in a book, although a book can be helpful. You learn about by getting out and doing things and figuring out what works and what didn't. So in my case, my 7 startups, 2 home runs, 2 great successes, 2 moderate successes, and 3 what I call DTT investments. I'll tell you what they are in just a minute. Then I went on to invest in 27 more, 7 IPOs. The biggest IPO, for every dollar you invested, you got back $906. It's about as good as it gets if your name isn't Sergey Brin or Larry Page or Mark Zuckerberg. 7 IPOs, 6 more DTTs, and everything in between. So what's a DTT? It's where you learn how to build a startup. DTT stands for direct to the toilet. You spend 6 months or a year of your life. In my case, I never raised any venture capital, so I made money on the first one. All that money went into the other 6. Some of it also went into my wallet and obviously into my stomach and my fancy cars and things like that. 6 times you took some pile of hundreds of thousands of dollars and 6 months or a year or 2 of my life. And at the end, you had this wad of junk. You put it in the toilet, you flush the handle, and it's gone. That's when you learn what not to do again. So why am I giving you this sort of silly Bob Dorf math lesson? Excuse me just for 1 second. Because in the United States alone, according to the Kaufman Foundation, a great source of help and information for you, in the United States alone, in each of the last several years, 650,000 businesses were started. 650,000. That's almost 2,000 businesses a day on Christmas Day, on Sunday, on Easter, right? A lot of businesses. And if you look back to the businesses that were started in 2009 or 2010 or 2011, how many of those businesses, A, are even still around, but more important, how many of them matter? One of the smartest venture capitalists thinks it's about 12. So that means for every 50,000 businesses started, 50,000, one is enduring, is great, is Facebook or Google quality, or it's saving lives in healthcare, or bringing fresh water to people in small towns in India or Siberia, or bringing sewage away from their homes. 12 out of 650,000. Some more generous estimates suggest that maybe it's 0.2% for every 1,000 businesses that start. 2 of them will be someday worth $100 million or more. Right? So, don't be in a hurry is my very first piece of advice to you. Take that as a scary, very frightening challenge. If you're going to do something important, something that's going to last, something that maybe will put your grandchildren through college someday and graduate school and buy them a dacha in the country near your, oligarch type dacha, or just make you a very good living and give you great challenge. It doesn't happen on your first idea or your second or your third. It takes tremendous hard work to get there. I can't tell you how many students of mine all over the world come to me with these wonderful new ideas for something to do with cooking recipes or food ordering or ingredients that you can do on a smartphone. Last summer, when another student at Columbia Business School showed me the next one of those, I got so angry I went home and did a little research. And as of July 2013, there were on the App Store alone, on iTunes alone, there were 850 different apps for managing your recipes, managing the food in your closet to figure out what to make for dinner. 850. If that's not bad enough, every 6 months there was 75 more. I went back and checked in 6-month chunks, right? So how are you ever going to build anything in that space that is going to be alive, let alone valuable or important or make you some real money, right? That means it's right off the bat 1,000 to 1 against your success. And how is it ever going to stand out on the App Store or on iTunes? Well, I have figured out one. If any of you is talented enough, I will give you a check right now if you can build this app. You look at the ingredients, you put them together in a recipe, you hit star 88 pound, and a little French chef in an apron and a toque, a cap, jumps out of your iPhone, starts grabbing and chopping the ingredients and sauteing them, and serves you a magnificent meal. That's about all that's left in doing something dramatic, something bold that stands out from competition. And if you are serious about building a startup, you are at almost certainly talking about investing 20,000 hours of your life, if not twice that many. 20,000 hours is 5 years, 80 hours a week, no vacations, maybe Christmas Day, Easter Sunday off, but not much more. It's so bad that when you come home at night and crawl into bed next to your significant other or insignificant other, he or she says, "Gee, what are you doing here? It's only 2:30 in the morning. It's so nice to have somebody in bed with me." And that's after the dog barked at you. Who is this stranger in my house? Building great startups is just not easy. It's not magical. I don't care how smart you are, how many degrees you have, how sure you are that you have this great idea. There are so many pieces to the successful startup puzzle, and we're going to cover a bunch of them in the next couple of hours. Now, if you're going to make that kind of investment, even then, it's highly likely that your startup will fail. Not because you didn't build great technology, not because you're not smart, but because you couldn't find enough customers at a price you could afford. So spend time, the first months, maybe more than months, sometimes a year, before you launch the company, before you try to get your first order, learning from people about what do they want, what are they so eager to have, what will they grab out of your hands because it's the most spectacular, interesting, valuable thing they've seen to cut their fingernails, make their dinner, cut their hair, solve their algebra problem, teach their kids whatever. But why would you want to waste 20,000 hours of your life on another smartphone app or some stupid e-commerce thing that's been done 50 times? If you're going to make this kind of an investment, do it in something where you have a chance of doing something that can really matter. All right?